Okay, so think about your car for a second. There are all these hidden parts, right? Things you hope you never actually use.
The sort of background safety nets.
Exactly. Features that are absolutely critical if the unexpected happens. They're just there, waiting.
Unsung heroes, really, designed purely for protection when things go sideways.
And today, we're doing a deep dive into the market for one very specific but incredibly important piece of tech. We're looking at the automotive rollover valve market,
Yeah, sounds a bit niche, maybe. But its job is fundamental. A rollover valve, basically, it stops fuel leaking out if a vehicle flips over.
which is crucial, obviously. Prevents fires, protects people inside, but also stops fuel spills, right? Environmental protection, too.
Absolutely critical on multiple fronts.
And for this deep dive, we're relying on some really solid information. We've got a comprehensive market research report here from Cognitive Market Research.
Right, and this report lays out the whole growth path, the global picture for this market, looking out over the next 10 years or so.
And honestly, for something most of us have probably never even heard of, the numbers are, well, they're pretty surprising. Big numbers. And the growth.
It's significant.
Yeah. So our mission today is to unpack how big this market is actually set to become and, where that growth is really happening around the globe.
It is fascinating how one single safety rule can basically create such a large and fast-growing global industry.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture, the global view based on the report. The core idea is simple. Keep fuel in the tank during a rollover. That's what drives this market, mostly because of safety and environmental rules worldwide.
And the Cognitive Market Research Report really quantifies this. So back in 2021, the global market revenue, it was already over $131.4 million.
Over $1.2 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, and just looking ahead a few years to 2025, that's projected to climb quite a bit to $1,958.5 million.
Almost a $2 billion. But here's where it really jumps. The forecast goes out to 2033,
Yeah.
and they're projecting a market size of $4,954.1 million.
Wow, okay. Nearly $5 billion by 2033. That's what, almost 4 times the size it was in 2021?
Yeah, more than tripling, almost quadrupling. It's a huge expansion over that time frame.
So what does that work out to, like, in terms of annual growth?
The overall compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, from 2021 right through to 2033 is calculated at 12.3%.
12.3%. Sustained double-digit growth like that, year after year for over a decade. That's pretty remarkable for any specific car part.
It really is. And the report points to the key reasons, the main drivers for this. Number one is definitely increasing regulatory pressure, governments demanding higher safety standards.
Makes sense.
And alongside that, you have ongoing technological improvements. The valves themselves are just getting better, more efficient, more reliable.
And that ties directly back to you, listening. Stricter safety rules mean these parts become standard, not optional extras. So this market growth, it kind of reflects better safety baselines in the cars we might actually drive.
Precisely. You can literally see safety standards driving market growth here. Now, that global picture is strong, but the report, it makes it clear that growth isn't the same everywhere. It varies quite a bit region by region.
Let's take a virtual trip down. Where's the expansion particularly strong, according to the report? Maybe start in North America?
Okay, North America. The report shows really solid, steady growth there. Regional sales starting at $360.8 million in 2021, projected to reach $1,401.2 million by 2033. That's a regional CGR of 12%. Pretty strong.
And within North America, the U.S. is the biggest chunk, I assume.
No, naturally, yeah. The U.S. market was $272 million in 2021, heading towards just over $1 billion by 2033 with an 11.7% CGR. But Canada's showing strong momentum, too.
Right.
Its CGR is projected slightly higher, actually, at 12.8%. So $55.2 million up to $244.3 million.
Interesting. Any other standouts there?
Well, Mexico really catches the eye in the report. It shows the highest growth rate in North America, a projected CGR of 13.2%, starting smaller, $33.6 million, but expected to hit $150 million by 2033.
13.2%. Okay. So strong across the board, but Mexico leading the growth rate.
Yeah.
Got it. Let's hop over to Europe. What's the picture there?
Europe's also showing very solid growth, kind of in line with that global average. The regional CAGR is pegged at 12.1%.
5.1. And the total figures?
Starting from $268.4 million back in 2021 and projected to cross the billion-dollar mark by 2033, reaching $147.5 million.
Okay, similar overall growth rate to North America, What about specific countries? Germany, France?
Germany's strong, definitely. $48.6 million out of $200.5 million, at 12.6% CAGR. France is a bit lower at 11.5%. Italy, 11.7%. Spain, 11.8%. Russia, 11.2%. Luxembourg, 12.5%. They're all showing good growth.
Right.
Though it's interesting, the UK is projected slightly higher at 12.9% CAGR, $27 into $119.22. And the category they call Rest of Europe, that actually shows an exceptional CAGR, 13%.
Right.
Suggests really broad adoption is happening, maybe catching up in some areas, from $33.6 million to $147.6 million.
13% for the rest of Europe. That is interesting. Okay, so maybe different timelines for regulations kicking in across the continent playing a role there.
Could be, yeah. It often varies how quickly standards are adopted or enforced locally.
All right, let's move to Asia Pacific. The report flags this as a really fast-growing region, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. One of the fastest globally for these valves. The numbers are big. Projected to go from $447 million in 2021 all the way up to nearly $1.91 billion by 2033. That's a regional CAGR of 12.5%.
Wow, nearly $2 billion just in Asia Pacific. Who's leading that charge? China, I guess.
China's the powerhouse, for sure.
Yeah.
$176.1 million in 2021, projected to hit $778.2 million by 2033. That's a 12.9% CAGR. Very strong. Japan's a bit lower, 11.7%.
Okay.
But the report really highlights India, calls it a booming market.
Well, what are the numbers?
An outstanding projected CPR of 13.2%, just like Mexico, starting from $66.2 million, but expected to reach $310.1 million. Huge growth potential being realized there.
13.2% in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really underscores the rapid vehicle growth and safety standard adoption in major emerging markets.
Definitely. And you see strong growth elsewhere, too. South Korea at 12.2%, Australia.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
You see strong growth elsewhere, too. South Korea at 12.2%, Australia stable at 12%, and Southeast Asia collectively showing a 12.9% CAGR. It's a dynamic region for this market.
Okay, impressive stuff in Asia Pacific. What about Latin America? Smaller market overall, I imagine.
Smaller, yes, but the growth trend is still consistently positive following the global pattern. Brazil leads the way there.
Figures for Brazil.
$35.9 million in 2021, projected to reach $138.4 million by 2033. That's an 11.9% CAGR.
Okay, still solid. And elsewhere.
Argentina and Colombia are both showing steady expansion. CAGR is right around 12%. Peru slightly lower at 11.2%. Chile 11.4%. So the same global drivers, safety rules, tech, they're clearly at play in Latin America too.
Right, contributing to that overall global lift we saw earlier. Okay, one more region. The Middle East and Africa.
Yes, currently the smallest slice of the global market for these valves. But, and this is interesting, the report shows it has some of the fastest growing individual country markets.
Oh, really? Like where?
Well, Egypt and Turkey both show really impressive projected KGRs, 13.7% for both.
13.7. Wow.
Yeah. Tiny markets to start: Egypt, $3.08, Turkey, $4.04 in 2021, but growing fast towards $14.04 and $16.08 respectively. The rest of the Middle East group is projected at 11.4%.
Okay, that's a significant growth rate. Any other standouts?
The big one mentioned in the report for this region, and actually one of the highest growth rates mentioned anywhere, is South Africa.
South Africa, higher than 13.7.
Projected KGR of 14.6%.
14.6, that's huge.
Yeah, starting from $12.5 million in 2021, projected to hit $52.1 million by 2033. Really shows significant strides in adopting these safety components. Nigeria also impresses with a 14% projected SAFDR.
Those super high growth rates in parts of the Middle East and Africa are pretty fascinating. Suggest maybe a rapid catch-up on vehicle safety standards, or perhaps more imported vehicles coming in with these features already standard.
It could be a mix of factors, but the trend is clear. Growth pretty much everywhere.
So just to wrap that part up, the takeaway seems to be this automotive rollover valve market is on a really significant widespread upward path, all corners of the globe. And it's basically being pushed by those key things: more safety rules and better valve technology.
That's the core story the data tells, yes.
It really is kind of mind-boggling. A component most drivers probably don't even know exists is heading towards being, according to this cognitive market research report, almost a $4.9 billion global market by 2033.
Just shows the scale of the automotive supply chain and the impact of regulation. And yeah, all the insights, all the numbers we discussed today, they come from that detailed report by Cognitive Market Research.
Which leaves us and you with something to think about, maybe a final thought based on this deep dive. Considering this consistent, strong growth right across the board, driven mostly by safety rules and tech improvements,
Yeah.
what does that trajectory suggest about the kind of minimum global standards for vehicle safety that we might realistically expect to see become commonplace, truly global over the next decade?
That's a great question. What's the baseline going to look like? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yep, until next time. Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
So we've got some source material here focusing on something, well, maybe not top of mind every day, but really critical for our vehicles, automotive rollover valves.
That's right. And we're going to, unpack this material, look at what's genuinely interesting, what's important for you listening.
Yeah, what's the mission here?
Our mission for this deep dive. It's really to understand the forces driving growth in this market.
Okay.
And also grasp the challenges it faces, the real-world roadblocks.
Right.
And explore some, pretty surprising innovations happening with this key safety part.
And it's a component that's definitely not standing still.
No.
The sources really highlight that. It's not just about, traditional gasoline cars.
Not anymore.
These valves are becoming more and more vital for electric vehicles and hybrids, too.
It's a piece of tech that's really evolving right alongside the whole auto industry.
Okay, let's dive in then.
Let's do it.
All right, so first up, what's actually driving the growth, according to the sources we have?
Well, the basics first.
It seems pretty fundamental they stop fuel leaking out if a car rolls over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that basic critical function, it's directly tied to a huge driver.
Which is?
The increasing global emphasis on vehicle safety and emission control compliance.
Okay. Safety and emissions.
Yeah. Rollover valves, they aren't really optional these days. They're indispensable for meeting modern crash safety standards.
Makes sense.
And as safety awareness goes up and emission rules get tougher worldwide,
Which they are.
regulators are basically pushing manufacturers to put these valves in nearly everything.
Everything. Like compact cars, too.
Compact cars, heavy-duty trucks, and yes, increasingly hybrids and EVs.
Yeah.
It's becoming standard across the board.
Wow. Okay. So safety and regulations, that's a massive engine for growth. What's the second big factor the sources point to?
That would be the huge expansion globally in producing and selling SUVs and off-road vehicles.
Oh, yeah. Just think about how many SUVs and pickups you see now compared to, say, 20 years ago.
They're absolutely everywhere.
Right.
And these types of vehicles, well, because they have a higher center of gravity, they can be more prone to rollovers in certain situations.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this makes rollover valves a standard, almost expected safety feature in these segments.
So it's driven by crashworthiness rules?
It's set by authorities, yeah,
Yeah.
but also by consumer demand. People want robust safety in these bigger, more capable vehicles.
Interesting. So it's not just regulators saying you must have this.
No.
It's also the market saying, look, if you're building this kind of vehicle.
We expect this level of safety built right in.
Exactly.
It's basically become table stakes.
Got it.
And the third growth factor.
This one's maybe the most forward-looking.
Okay, this is where EVs and advanced hybrids come in, right?
Precisely.
You might wonder, why does an EV need a rollover valve? But the sources make it clear.
They are absolutely essential, particularly in hybrid platforms that, still manage liquid fuel.
Right, hybrids still have gas tanks. And even for pure EVs, while they don't have a fuel tank like we normally think of, the basic idea of managing fluids and pressure during a crash, that's still relevant. Think about battery cooling systems, maybe other fluid reservoirs.
Okay.
But the main point from the sources is really about hybrids and the specific need they call out.
What's that?
It's for compact, lightweight, and highly compatible valve systems.
So smaller, lighter.
Exactly. They need to fit seamlessly into these innovative and often really tightly packed designs of new electric and hybrid vehicles.
Space is always tight in new designs.
Always. So it's not just using the same old part. It means developing specialized versions.
Okay, so let's summarize that growth picture from the sources.
Yeah, let's recap.
It sounds like a powerful mix. You've got regulatory mandates pushing safety,
Check.
market demand, especially driven by the popularity of things like SUVs,
Right, the consumer side.
and then the tech demands from next-gen vehicles like hybrids and EVs.
Yeah, the need to adapt to those new architectures. It really shows how a component market like this is well, tightly linked to these huge shifts in the whole auto industry.
Okay, so that's the growth story. But, like any market moving fast, there have got to be roadblocks, challenges.
Oh, definitely.
What does the source material say are the main hurdles kind of tempering this growth?
Well, a major one they highlight is design and integration complexity.
Okay.
This is a big engineering challenge, particularly in compact and mid-sized vehicles.
I can imagine space is just a huge issue there.
It really is. You've got very limited space around the fuel tank,
Right.
and you have to somehow integrate this valve function reliably.
Sounds tricky.
It dramatically increases the engineering complexity and, well, the cost to develop it,
Cost.
especially for manufacturers building economy cars where, every single cent counts. Getting it right in a tight space is just hard.
So physical limits translate directly into engineering headaches
Yeah.
and cost pressures. Okay.
Hmm.
What's the second big restraint mentioned?
The market's really high dependence on OEM adoption.
The car manufacturers themselves.
Yes. And also the varying pace of safety regulations evolving around the world.
Meaning, even if the tech is ready,
Yeah.
how fast it gets rolled out depends entirely on the car makers deciding to use it broadly.
And the regulators mandating it.
Right.
Exactly. The source notes that the market's growth speed is often dictated by those factors.
Okay.
And this can lead to slower or kind of inconsistent growth in
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
slower or kind of inconsistent growth in regions where safety standards maybe aren't updated as quickly or uniformly,
I see.
which can be a particular challenge for, say, low-cost producers in emerging economies. Their adoption might lag behind places with stricter, faster-moving rules.
That makes sense. The global picture isn't uniform at all.
Not at all.
What's the third challenge they mentioned?
It's the inherent risk, basically, of malfunction or the valve clogging up over time.
Okay, how does that happen?
Well, think about where these valves live. It's a pretty harsh environment under a car.
Yeah, dirt, water.
It's exactly.
Ugh.
Environmental contaminants like dust, fuel residues building up,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe potential degradation if, substandard materials were used in manufacturing it in the first place.
And if a safety critical valve malfunctions, well, that sounds like a pretty significant reliability concern.
It absolutely is, which means you need really strict quality assurance during manufacturing
Right.
and potentially periodic maintenance, which adds to the cost of owning the car,
Oh.
and sophisticated testing protocols to make sure they work perfectly throughout the vehicle's entire life.
So guaranteeing that long-term reliability is vital.
Crucial, but it adds complexity and cost.
Okay, so we've got the tough engineering puzzle of fitting them into tight spots,
Uh-huh.
this sort of external reliance on OEM choices and regulatory timing,
Yeah.
and this fundamental challenge of just making sure a safety part works flawlessly for years in a difficult environment. Those are pretty substantial headwinds.
They really are. But what's interesting, and what the sources also highlight, is how these challenges are actually driving innovation in the market.
Perfect segue. Okay, let's look at part 3 then. What's next? What are the transformative trends, the innovations the sources highlight?
Okay.
The first one mentioned is the rise of compact, integrated, multifunction valve modules.
This is a pretty significant leap, actually.
How so?
Well, instead of having, separate parts for rollover protection and pressure relief and fuel tank venting, engineers are now combining these multiple functions into a single compact unit.
Ooh, that sounds like a smart way to tackle that space issue you mentioned earlier.
It is. It directly addresses the space constraints.
Right.
It also helps cut down the overall component weight,
Also good.
simplifies the fuel tank design itself, and it aligns perfectly with demands for efficiency and safety in modern cars, especially hybrids and EVs, where packaging space is just incredibly valuable.
Okay. Combining functions makes a lot of sense. What about the materials? Are things changing there?
Definitely. There's a clear trend towards using advanced high-performance plastics and also lightweight alloys.
Okay, like what kind of materials?
The sources specifically mention things like PA66 and PPS. Those are types of high-strength, heat-resistant plastics,
Okay.
and also specialized aluminum alloys.
And what are the benefits of using those?
Well, they enhance durability, for one,
Stronger parts.
right? They also reduce weight even further compared to, say, traditional materials.
Lighter is better.
And they improve resistance to things like extreme heat, chemical exposure from fuels, corrosion, stuff like that.
Okay.
Using these advanced materials is pretty much essential for meeting global standards and just ensuring the valve performs reliably over, the whole 10-plus year lifespan of a vehicle.
So better materials mean tougher, lighter parts that can withstand more. Got it. And the final innovation mentioned in the sources.
That would be a significant increase in the automation
Mm-hmm.
and the sophistication of how these valves are tested and certified.
Testing. Why is that so important?
Well, meeting those really rigorous international safety standards like FMVSS 301 in the U.S.
Right.
and UNIS R34 internationally, those are key crash safety rules about fuel system integrity during impacts and rollovers.
And compliance is just non-negotiable, right?
It's absolutely non-negotiable.
So automation helps ensure that compliance.
Totally.
Yeah.
Automation is crucial for ensuring consistent accuracy in, say, leak detection
Makes sense.
and precise calibration of flow rates, verifying superior pressure durability under test conditions. It basically removes human variability and allows for much more thorough validation.
So automated testing makes that critical safety validation process more reliable and efficient.
Exactly. Which, in an industry where passenger safety is just the absolute top priority,
It has to be.
makes these rigorous certifications a really key competitive differentiator.
How so?
Well, companies that can demonstrate and certify compliance efficiently using these advanced testing methods, they have a distinct edge in the market.
Right. It's clear these innovations are, directly responding to those challenges we talked about, pushing the technology forward.
Yeah, if you look at the bigger picture, these developments really show the industry isn't just sitting back.
No, they're active.
They're actively engineering solutions through smarter design, advanced materials, and really cutting-edge manufacturing and testing.
Okay, so we've really done a deep dive into this source material today.
We have.
We've uncovered the key drivers pushing this automotive rollover valve market forward, the regulations, the popularity of certain vehicles like SUVs, the demands of new EV and hybrid designs.
Yep, the growth side.
Then we explored the very real challenges slowing things down, that design complexity, the reliance on OEMs and regulators, the need for long-term reliability.
The hurdles.
And finally, we've seen these fascinating technological shifts happening, those integrated modules, advanced materials, sophisticated automated testing.
The innovation piece.
Yeah.
Understanding components like the rollover valve, it really reveals the incredible layers of engineering.
So much complexity.
Safety engineering, material science, regulatory compliance, all built into the vehicles we use every single day.
It really highlights how even parts that seem, small or unseen,
Like this valve.
are evolving so rapidly with technology, driven constantly by this demand for greater safety and efficiency.
As the source material really emphasizes, this market isn't just expanding.
It's changing.
It's undergoing a fundamental transformation with safety, technology, and sustainability right at its core.
Which raises an interesting thought maybe for you, the listener, to consider.
Yeah. No.
Next time you're in a vehicle, any vehicle, just think for a second about all those unseen essential components, like this valve,
Working silently.
working silently to keep you safe in scenarios you hopefully never encounter.
Right.
And think about that complex interplay of global regulations, cutting-edge innovation, precise manufacturing, all required to make that silent protection possible.
Right there, under the floorboards, doing its job.
Something to mull over.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai